All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm Roger Lee, the chairman of the Spotlight in Seattle Committee. Before we introduce our speaker, I'd like to give you a little preview of what may be coming up, what is coming up. In October, we'll be having a tour of Moai led by the executive director, Leonard Garfield. There will be limited space, so there'll be a sign up, unfortunately, but he can only talk to so many people at once, I guess. And then in November, we have a speaker coming from Fred Hutchison Research to update us on that. So watch the alert for these programs. Tonight is a program that our former chair, Jeff Graham, has been working on for a long time. And I think it's going to be of great interest and very informative. And it will be illustrated. And I think it's time for Jeff to tell you about it. Thank you.
Our speaker this evening is Angela Brady. She goes by Angie, I found out, and we're very happy to have her. She's the director of the Waterfront Project, Seattle. And sitting here talking with her, she's been involved with a lot of Seattle projects over the years, so we're happy to have her here because she will really, she has the history behind her, and it's going to be great. I do want to say that I think it was 4 or 5 years ago that Marshall Foster was here to present this project to us. That was about the first time we got to see it. The second time was during the pandemic, so we had a Zoom meeting. Maybe 15 people were there to hear it. So this is the first time we've had somebody back in to bring us up to date with what's happening. So Angie, take off.
Thank you so much. I'm hearing this group isn't shy, so if you can't hear me at any point in my conversation here, you can raise your hand or point at me or yell at me or something, and I'll try to talk louder. I'm a little bit tall, so I might have to. Can I push this up? Oh, I can do this. Oh, okay. Okay, great. So yes. So I'm Angie Brady. I work for the City of Seattle. I'm the director of the Office of the Waterfront and Civic Projects. That's a long title, but what all that means is that I'm in charge of all of the great work we're doing in terms of design and construction of our new waterfront, which we're all really excited about. So thank you so much for having me here today. And I have a whole set of visuals and slides to walk you through, to talk you through some of the history and some renderings to show you about just what we're building down there. And then I also have included some construction photos in case some of you haven't had a chance to get down there and actually see all of the really cool construction that we're doing down there. So, and then I'm gonna try to run through these pretty quickly, but if you have questions, sounds like we're gonna do that at the end. I'm happy to answer informally as well if that's preferred. So why don't we just kick this off and get started. Couple of historic photos. This is a picture of our waterfront back in the early 1900s. As you can see, we had essentially, our waterfront has always been this industrial location and really focused on shipping and railroad and just getting goods to and from downtown Seattle. And so here you can actually see that the waterfront was built over water on stilts. And at some point in the 1940s, when vehicles became much more popular, there was a freeway built on the waterfront, and we affectionately called it the Alaskan Way Viaduct. And this is a photo of that viaduct under construction in 1952. It was completed in 1955. And here is what that viaduct looked like before it came down. This was a picture we took in 2018. I don't know, a lot of you may or may not have enjoyed the viaduct. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed driving on it, but it has been a separation. It's created this separation from downtown, between downtown and our beautiful waterfront for many, many years, for over 70 years. And so when there was talk about taking this thing down, I think everybody at the city was really excited at the opportunity provided by that. Thought I'd talk about a little bit about the history on kind of how this project got started in the first place. You all might remember in 2001, we had a pretty significant earthquake here in Seattle, the Nisqually earthquake, and that earthquake damaged quite a bit of our waterfront infrastructure, including the Alaska Way Viaduct, which was already in need of replacement. It also damaged what we call the Elliott-based Seawall, which is basically the wall that extends the entire length of our waterfront, forms the foundation for the waterfront. And, you know, the seawall was vulnerable already. We had quite a bit of damage to it, even pre-earthquake. So the earthquake really brought out these additional problems that we had along the waterfront, and really it was the impetus for starting to relook at our plan for the waterfront. And the state and the city and the Port of Seattle and King County all got together at some point to talk about what is the solution for our new waterfront. Between 2001 and 2009, there were over 900 studies done. Different ideas people had about what to do on our new waterfront. And finally, in 2009, there was a point in 2008 where the governor came out and said she wanted to rebuild the viaduct, taller, wider, bigger. And the city, I'll credit Mayor Nichols at the time, he basically said, hell no, we're not going to do that in my city. And thank God for him, because he really fought it hard, and he changed her mind. And, you know, that was Governor Gregoire at the time, if you remember. And in 2009, she came out in support of building a tunnel in lieu of the viaduct. And so that decision came out in 2009. That was the impetus for the city to start working with the community, hiring a design team to come in and really help us develop a vision for our future waterfront. And I've been working on this program since 2012. I was brought on once a vision was created. I'm a civil engineer, went to UW here locally, and I was brought on to actually execute on all of the talking and the vision and the planning of this project. So we've been doing that since 2012, and now we're in the middle of construction. We're 2 short years away from being complete, and we're all really excited about it. This is a graphic just sharing with you all of the different projects that are happening up and down the waterfront. This orange dashed line marks the alignment of the SR 99 tunnel. So that was completed in February 2019. This green line that runs along the waterfront represents the Elliott-based seawall, so that forms the foundation of our new waterfront. We started rebuilding that in 2013. We were complete in 2017. You all might recognize there's a large project happening with Coleman Dock, and that is a terminal for which has been reconstructed over the last 6 years, and we've been working really closely with folks at Washington State Ferries on that effort. Everything shown here in this gold color is part of what we call the Waterfront Seattle program. So as part of basically all of that is being reconstructed with this program. A couple of other projects to note here in the purple colors here. The Seattle Aquarium has an expansion that they're building as part of our waterfront, and I'm going to show you some renderings of what that looks like. And then Pike Place Market has built what's called the new market front. So they actually have built a new building and a deck overlooking the new waterfront, and we're going to be attaching to that with another pedestrian bridge, and I'm going to show you what that's going to look like here in just a minute. And then you see those 2 lines that take you into the city here. These are improvements that we're making on Pike Street and Pine Street that are really focused on pedestrian enhancements, urban design, landscaping, and the like. That is a project that's under construction currently as well. Couple of images. This is one of the new seawall. We spent a lot of time thinking about what this new seawall would do outside of its structural capacity and really forming the foundation for the waterfront. We also had an obligation to consider habitat enhancements as part of this. And so that's kind of part of what you're seeing here. And I've got a few more slides. I want to talk about that here in a minute. Board Tunnel, this project was completed in February 2019. Some of us in this room, including myself, may have been lucky enough to walk through it before they opened it to traffic. It was just heaven to see that be done because it allowed for then the viaduct to start being demolished. This is a photo in Pioneer Square on Main Street looking toward the water, just kind of right in the middle of demolition, and it was fascinating to watch. This is a photo after they were done removing the viaduct on Main Street. And I love this photo because it shares with you how, just how impactful the removal of the viaduct will be, has been in terms of reconnecting our city to our beautiful waterfront. We spent many years between 2009 and even through today just working with the public, letting people know what we were doing, trying to get ideas from people. What did they want to see on our new waterfront so that we could incorporate those ideas and those thoughts into the ultimate vision for the waterfront. We spent a lot of time and continue to do so with our tribal partners. We walked them through what the vision was for the project. They told us what was important to them in terms of their own priorities. They talked about protecting the marine environment, talking about salmon habitat, talking about making sure that we're adequately reflecting their tribal history in terms of adding art and other elements along the waterfront. So we've been very conscientious about including all of these elements on the new waterfront. The project itself extends from the stadiums down at the south end here on the left-hand side of the screen. And it basically spans all the way along the waterfront up to Belltown at Bell Street. So 26 city blocks in all. The spine of the project really runs along Alaskan Way. And kind of the most important thing, I think, to think about when you're thinking about the reconstruction of our waterfront is when we took the viaduct down, we were able to take Alaskan Way, which used to be on the water's edge, and push it as far east as we possibly could. And I have some visuals that show you that. So that we could open up the water's edge and create a new park, a long linear park along the waterfront. The program also includes 2 new piers, a pier at 62, which is north of the aquarium, and a new pier between the Great Wheel and the aquarium here called Waterfront Park. And then we have all these kind of long fingers that run into the city. So one of the things that our design firm really wanted us to think about was not just rebuilding the new waterfront with these beautiful parks, but also to think about making improvements to connections into the heart of the city. And so we have a series of projects that do that. One in Pioneer Square that makes improvements to 4 linear blocks here. We have pedestrian bridges at both Marion Street and Union Street. We have a new transit street on Columbia that connects transit into the heart of our city. I talked about Pine and Pike Street. Those street improvements connect Pike Place Market up to Melrose up here on Capitol Hill. And then Bell Street, we have a couple of blocks of improvements there as well that really help us connect back into downtown. Overall schedule, just very high level. We really started construction. We built the new seawall between 2013 and 2017. And then we also built Pier 62 sometime between 2017 and 2020. I'm going to show you some images of that. But we really couldn't start in earnest until the viaduct came down. So the tunnel had to be complete, viaduct had to come down, and that really, most of that happened in the fall of 2019 is when we were able to really start building the new road, putting in new utilities, and building the new park. And what this is showing you is we're going to be done with most of this work in 2025, and hopefully early in 25. This is a cross-section showing the new waterfront. So you can kind of see this image here on the right-hand side. This is the old viaduct. And you can see that we've built the new roadway within the footprint of the old viaduct. We built nice new wide sidewalks on the east side of the street. And then everything to the west is really dedicated to our new long linear park promenade. What you see on the far left side of the screen here is the Seawall infrastructure. So this is that foundation I talked about earlier. A little bit closer view of the Seawall itself. One of the things that we did in terms of enhancing habitat is really focused on salmon restoration, and so building this salmon migration corridor underneath the seawall. So what you see from the surface is basically a structure that extends over the water, and there's a glass, we call it a glass floor. There's these little glass panels in those, in these concrete panels that run up and down the waterfront. And what those do is they let light through down below where we've built these habitat benches and these sort of shallow respite areas that support salmon migration up and down our waterfront. And we've got the University of Washington has been helping us monitor the status of these new habitat features, and they're working. And there are people from all over the world who are coming to our city and investigating the process we've gone through to get these, to improve the habitat along our waterfront. This is a picture just showing you that light that comes through the top, through these glass panels down to the waterfront, or down to the seawall, sorry. We also built a habitat beach. This beach is located just south of Coleman Dock, and we were able to open this beach on July 1st, actually, this year, so pretty excited about that. There's a historic boat landing called the Washington Street Boat Landing at Washington Street. We've totally refurbished it. It looks amazing. We're going to be opening this next spring with a concessionaire inside the space to really help program it and activate it. So we're very excited about that as well. I'm not going to spend much time on this. Just want to point out between 2019 and 2021, we've hit a lot of milestones. We've made a lot of progress. I just said we finished the Habitat Beach. We opened Columbia Street to two-way traffic. We completed a pier at Pier 62. And then we kind of, we really struggled through COVID because we actually started construction in earnest in the fall of 2019. And so once we hit one of our major first milestones, which was to build a transit connection on Columbia Street, we opened it in February, and literally the next day, we were told to shut down. And so we had some decisions to make. And one of the things I'm really grateful for in terms of Mayor Durkin and her leadership is we were able to convince her that we really wanted to keep going. So we put all the security protocols in place. We narrowed our team down to the minimal amount of people we needed, and we kept going. And that couldn't have been a better decision. I'm just really glad that we did that. This is a visual of just sort of some ongoing Alaskan Way construction. And you can see here that we've built the new road within the footprint of the old viaduct. And now we're really focused on rebuilding this entire section of Linear Park. And a lot of people, if you go down there, you can actually see physically the curb to curb, and the width of this new park is actually almost wider than the new road, which I think we're all pretty excited about. One of the controversial aspects of designing our new waterfront was a criticism about the street itself. And just wanted to address that really quickly. So we have 2 lanes each direction on Alaskan Way for the majority of the length of the waterfront. The exception to that is here at the south end. And you all know we've got Coleman Dock here. That is actually the busiest ferry terminal and the largest ferry terminal in the United States. And so working with the state of Washington, Washington State Ferries, I should say, they require some queuing on the street to get people to and from the ferries. So we had to provide for that. The other big piece here is that this Alaskan Way serves as a major transit route for all the buses that run into and out of downtown to Southwest King County. I live in West Seattle. I take the bus every day, so I'm on these buses every day. King County Metro argued very strongly that they needed dedicated transit lanes in order to keep the headways and keep people moving quickly. So we did add transit lanes as well at that south end. So the southern 4 blocks is pretty wide. We tried to supplement that with wider sidewalks, nice wide medians, lots of plants. But then north of this location, everything is pretty narrow. It feels pretty narrow on the street. This is a picture of the Habitat Beach that we took just last year. And it just kind of shows you the configuration of the south end of the roadway. We've made a lot of progress in the last couple of years alone. I would say through COVID, we made a lot of progress. Those last 2 years, we've made even more. Lots of big milestones, and I'm not going to walk you through all this whole list, but because I have some visuals that I can share that do that. This is a visual of the promenade at Coleman Dock. That location is a major transit hub, so we've got all of the folks coming into the ferry system. We have the water taxis from Vashon and Kitsap and West Seattle. We have all the buses that King County Metro is serving Southwest King County, all congregating in one location. So with our design, we tried to accommodate, thinking big about a transit hub and the needs of a transit hub at that location. This is a rendering of the new Coleman Dock entry building, and this is actually, I think they opened this just a few weeks ago. And we've been working closely with them because we are building a new, what's called the Marion Street pedestrian bridge. And this is the bridge that connects pedestrians from First Avenue over to the new terminal. And we're just about getting ready to open this bridge. It should open in less than a month. So very excited about that. Whoops, I think I went backwards. This is a before picture located here just at Pier 55, looking south. So you can see the lovely viaduct was in its place there. And all of the pavement. I mean, basically the whole waterfront was just a sea of concrete back then. And this is our rendering and vision for what the new park promenade will look like once we're all done at that specific location. So we have tons of gardens and landscaping and seating elements. We have wayfinding, we have art. We're really, really excited to get all this installed. We also have a boardwalk kind of lit up at night with the landscaping just all around it. It's going to be stunning. And just a couple of construction photos. So just we're forming up some of the promenade areas and the concrete specifically. We've been installing all of the sort of irrigation lines, all the utilities that are needed for the future landscaping, the structural foundations that are needed for the boardwalk. And we are installing a protected bike facility that spans the entire length of the waterfront as well. So you're starting to see these things take shape. Up at the north end of the waterfront, this is kind of hard to read, but just wanted to provide a little overview here. So this is Pier 58. It's located between the Great Wheel and the aquarium. And this, what's north of it, is Pier 62. So I've got some images of both of those here in a minute. One of the sort of crown jewels of the new waterfront, at least one of my favorite parts, is called the Overlook Walk. And the Overlook Walk is essentially a massive bridge, pedestrian bridge connection that connects Pike Place Market up and over the new roadway that runs underneath it. So this is Alaskan Way underneath it. And the bridge spans over the road, and it connects to a rooftop deck, which will also be a park, that sits on top of the new aquarium building. And that'll be connected to this grand set of stairs with an elevator as well. So I've got some images that I want to share on that. But the road itself runs northbound up the hill along Alaskan Way. We built a new bridge up and over the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad tunnel that runs right underneath this area. And then we're reconnecting to the existing Alaskan Way with this little kind of curved road here. Pier 62, so we rebuilt this pier starting in 2017, and it opened in September 2020. Not the best time to open a public park. Didn't get a whole lot of people out here, but It's a beautiful new pier. It's intended to be a flexible space that can be programmed in many different ways. We included a floating dock at the southern edge of this pier. One of the things we heard a lot during the visioning for the new waterfront was people wanted a place to go and touch the water. And if you think about what the waterfront looked like previous to now, there really wasn't a place that you can get out to the water and touch it. And so this was one of those elements that we all felt strongly about including. So it was a place for people to get down and really connect with the water. The other location for that is the new beach we built at the south end of Coleman Dock. Since we've opened it, we have seen a lot of programmed events, very successful. One of the things I wanted to focus on here with you all is just to share that we have a nonprofit group called Friends of Waterfront Seattle, and they are an incredible group of civic partners and civic leaders in this city who have been with us since 2009, really, supporting this project, urging it on, raising money to help pay for it. Friends is raising $110 million in philanthropic gifts to the city to pay for the capital cost of this program. That's an unprecedented amount of private money being pumped into a public program like this. They're also raising another $90 million to pay for maintenance and programming and security needs for the park after we're done. And one of the things that they've been doing is programming Pier 62 and really using it as a pilot to bring people down to the waterfront. So they have, you name it, they have concerts, they have exercise activities, they have food trucks, they have all sorts of events that are planned on Pier 62 all year round, and especially during the summer months. So I'd encourage you, if you have a chance, go down and check out the pier and see one of these amazing events. A couple of other projects that we have completed, the Union Street pedestrian bridge, which is a bridge connection that spans from basically from Western Avenue down to the waterfront, and we included an elevator with this pedestrian bridge. One of the key components that we really tried to address here with our waterfront plan is, Seattle is very steep. It's hard to get to and from the waterfront from downtown. And so trying to recognize that and make it a little easier for people to transverse those really tough hills. So this is, we're pretty happy and excited to have added an elevator at this location. This is a rendering of the Overlook Walk I talked about earlier. So this is Pike Place Market at the top of the hill. And we're building a bridge connection that will essentially span up and over the new roadway, which runs underneath it. And again, connects to the aquarium here. This is the new Aquarium Ocean Pavilion project. It's an expansion of their existing facilities, so they'll have their existing facility that is over water and this additional ocean pavilion piece. There's an elevator that runs along the south side of this aquarium. And then there's this grand set of stairs that takes you down and connects you down to the new park. The Overlook Walk itself will have plenty of landscaping, places to sit to just enjoy the views from this incredible spot. One of the comments that we heard from people is we're going to miss the views from the top level of the viaduct. And so this is an ode to that. We're creating this elevated park space that captures those views of Elliott Bay and the Olympics. And this is a view of the Overlook Walk, just looking south toward the stadiums. You can see those in the distance. Mount Rainier is kind of missing. It's going to be gorgeous. And then this is the aquarium expansion, just looking up at it. They have this, what they call an oculus that they've included, and it is a circular window, essentially. So you can actually be outside of the aquarium and stand under this glass window and look up and see the sharks or whatever it is they're going to put in their tanks. So I thought that was a pretty cool feature. But everything they're building here provides for this public rooftop space that is essentially a park. It's not private. These are some construction photos. So you guys know I'm an engineer, I'm a construction geek, so bear with me. So this was a photo taken in January of just this last year. So you can kind of see, this is the market, the new market front. And you can kind of see the new bridge taking shape here. And you can see the new road that runs underneath it. And this was taken in March. And this was taken in July. And so if you actually go down there, if you went down there tomorrow, you would see that there's glazing and windows and all sorts of finishes going up on the aquarium building itself. Their crane was just removed about a month ago, and we're going to be removing our crane just shortly. So we're making a ton of progress together on this. This is a shot looking northbound on Elliott Way. So this is the crane we're using to build the Overlook Walk. This is the actual bridge structure that spans over the new roadway. And you can see some of our new plants are taking shape here. The Pike Place Market is working on replacing this elevator here as well. So that'll provide a direct connection to the Overlook Walk. This picture is taken right around where Pike Hill Climb is. So if you just imagine the Pike Hill Climb is just kind of right off the photo. Looking a little bit further north, basically the way this new road works is it runs underneath the Overlook Walk. It heads all the way up north into Belltown and connects here up at Bell Street. And so northbound lanes run right along this new Western Street connection. It connects to Western here. And this is Elliott that runs southbound, and you just get right on the new lanes heading southbound here. It's pretty nifty. We also made some improvements to the Lenora Street pedestrian bridge and elevator, which is owned by the port. We've been working with them on enhancing that bridge structure and really making it accessible. And then we have 2 blocks of improvements in Belltown, and we're just now kicking off the design phase for that. So working with the Belltown Community Council and others in that community. They're very excited about that. This is an image just showing you, this is that Lenora Street pedestrian bridge I talked about with an elevator at the end of it. And this is that new bridge structure along Elliott Way. We've included sidewalks and bike lanes and 2 lanes each direction for vehicular traffic. The new Pier 58, we just began construction of this project last fall. It's been a year. This is an exciting new pier that is being built level with the new park promenade along the water here. It includes a beautiful new children's playground. This was another one of those items that when we went out to the public and had a conversation about what people wanted to see on the waterfront, they all said they wanted to see a children's playground. We don't have many children's playgrounds in Seattle, especially on the waterfront or near it. And then we have a grassy area for people to enjoy views out. We have a tree grove. We have the Fitzgerald Fountain, which not too long ago fell into the water when this old pier fell in, which was obviously in dire need of replacement. But we brought that pier back to life, or that fountain back to life, and we're going to be installing it on this new pier as well. We have also, I'm just going to point out here, we are building a new public restroom on the waterfront. We don't have one, have never had one. And so a lot of people excited about that as well. Just some construction images. These were some of the piles that we drove between September and February. Reflects about half of what the pier size will be ultimately. We're just about to start driving some new piles actually, they're supposed to start today. So we're going to try to get the rest of the piles in this season and hope to get this pier wrapped up at sometime in early 25. An image of what the promenade will look like adjacent to the pier. I talked about a little bit about art earlier. We have a waterfront art program that is being managed by somebody in our group who is just an excellent both artist and manager of art. We have 10 art projects up and down the waterfront. This is an example of one that's called Welcome Figures. This is in particular is an Indigenous artist, and we have multiple Indigenous artist artworks that are being installed on the waterfront, but we also have others as well. I talked earlier about the fact that we have some improvements in the Pioneer Square area. This is just an example of kind of some of the thoughts that we have included in the design. So leveling this, providing a level street with the sidewalks on the north and south sides, enhancing the landscaping, and really focusing on the urban environment and the experience. This project will start construction in January. And just an image of the Pike and Pine Street Improvements Project. So this is kind of our before, and this is our after. We started construction of this project in February of this year, and it should be done next fall. So how much are we spending on all of this? The Waterfront Seattle program total cost is $781 million. And we have essentially 4 funding sources. So we have no federal funding included in this project. We have a lot of city funding and a lot of state funding. The state was obligated to pay to replace the roadway as part of their replacement of SR 99 and the viaduct. But essentially, we have 4 funding sources. We have the state, the city, and then we have these 2 creative sources. One I talked about already with the philanthropic funds, $110 million coming from Friends of Waterfront Seattle, who are relying upon donations from generous people. And then the LID, which is a local improvement district. And this is essentially kind of like a property tax. So it basically looks at all of the properties in downtown Seattle, and there's an assessment on how much those property values are intended to go up once we're complete with the waterfront improvements. And what the LID does is it takes a tiny portion of that assessment and applies it toward the capital cost. It wasn't a very popular idea, but it did get passed by City Council, and it helped us raise $160 million of much-needed funding to pay for this project. I talked a little bit about Friends and our partnership with them already. I just had an image in here just so I wouldn't forget to share that with you. This is an image from Belltown looking to the south, and I love this picture because it isn't very often you see a project reconstructing 26 city blocks all at once. That just doesn't happen. And so this was taken right in the middle of it, where we literally had every single block under construction. So obviously things look a lot different out there now. And that's it, you guys. How did I do time-wise? Oh, I left 20 minutes for questions.
We can take questions now, and then we have a couple of people with microphones. So somebody has their hand up already back here.
There were a number of legal challenges to the LID project. Have those legal challenges been settled?
There was one challenge, and it is still in the appeals process. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, there's some question about that whole LID program being in compliance with state law.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions?
There's one right behind you.
Oh, okay.
What happens when the oceans rise?
Oh, you asked the tough questions. One of the things we did when we started design of our new seawall is we hired the University of Washington. They have a climate group that is 100% focused on sea level rise. And we worked with them to develop a probability-based assessment of what our sea level rise in this region will look like. And based on their evidence, and actually it's still valid today, even though it's been about 10 years, we looked at the year 2100 as our design life for the overall seawall and the waterfront, which is about usually how long structures last around here, 80 to 100 years. And we still, based on the estimates we're using, we still have 3 feet of freeboard from the maximum of the sea level rise to the top of our seawall, if that makes sense. So we think we're covered until at least 2100.
Hello.
Hello.
When you showed the illustration of the 62 pier, it appeared as though there is an equal plot next to it to the north, but it didn't have any, you didn't mention whether that's
yeah.
already committed or where does that stand in its development?
Yes, thank you for asking that. So Pier 62, and you can actually see it in this image. We rebuilt the southern, it used to be called Pier 62, 63, because it was actually two piers. It was a Pier 62 and a Pier 63. We rebuilt Pier 62 and built that new floating dock, and we decided that we didn't actually need the vastness of two ginormous piers over water. And so we took down Pier 63. It doesn't exist anymore. So if you walk out there, you won't see it. This is an old picture when we still had it in place. We just demolished it last fall, so it was there up until December 22. Yeah.
I have a question about how people are going to access there. For instance, when we go down, are there places for people to park? Are there places for instance, lifts and Ubers to pull in? That sort of thing.
Yes, so we aren't putting back as many parking spots as existed under the viaduct, which was literally hundreds of spots. We do have parallel parking on both sides of Alaskan Way and on some of the side streets. And the city put forth some of the funding that we put out for the Pike Place Market improvements, included a new parking garage. And that new parking garage includes more than 300 spots, and it's very accessible to the waterfront.
How about people who aren't coming by car?
And we have Uber and Lyft and load unload, and specifically for ADA access, especially adjacent to Coleman Dock. All of that was considered and included in the program. So you'll see dedicated load unload at every block. Yes.
I assume you're not going to put creosote piling in, so it's going to be concrete?
Steel.
Steel, okay. And number two, are you going to build us a funicular for those of us that don't like going up hills? And number three, are you old enough to know why the piers are at an angle? And I know the answer if you don't.
Oh my gosh, are you an engineer? She's asking some technical questions.
It's because trains used to go that way, and trains can't make right-hand corners.
That's exactly right. And actually, I had an image of that at the very beginning of this PowerPoint. So yes, gold star for you. The vernacular question, it's funny you asked that because we did include some thoughts about building a vernacular at Union Street instead of the pedestrian bridge and the elevator that we actually installed. Turns out vernaculars there aren't very many of them around the world, and they're really hard to maintain. So what's the easiest way? I would say similar to an escalator. It's kind of, yeah, it kind of sometimes you see them when people have, some people have houses that access the water, and they'll have a little like track that it runs on. It's kind of like an elevator that looks like that's shaped like an escalator, if that makes any sense. Yeah, now everybody's going to Google that. Did I answer all three of your questions? Okay.
What creatures are going to habitat the Habitat Beach?
Well, we've already seen blue herons enjoying that space, eagles. One of the things that the University of Washington scientists are doing is they do dives every month, and they take pictures and images and videos of some of the fish and the different habitat that are enjoying these new spaces along the waterfront. If you'd like, I can send you a link to one of their informative videos where they get really excited about the different animals they're seeing that are utilizing that new space that we've created for them. So it's not people. Oh, the beach can inhabit people. There's a ton of people down there. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, we opened the Habitat Beach to people on July 1st. So we completed construction of it in 2019. Then COVID happened, and we wanted to kind of wait till we established all the landscape on the actual beach. And now that it's been established, we were able to open it on July 1st. So you can go down and enjoy it anytime. It's beautiful. It's rocky. Be prepared. Not sand. Yeah.
I haven't heard anything about the Olympic Sculpture Park.
Olympic Sculpture Park.
How is that going to be integrated?
The Olympic Sculpture Park is actually located about 6 blocks north of the northern limits of what we're doing here. You may have read in the Seattle Times just recently, there was a very generous gift from Melinda Gates and Scott McKenzie, and I think it's the Furstenberg, Diane von Furstenberg, and the Dillers. So they've given, I think, $50 million toward a project that will create some additional park-like improvements between the waterfront that we are building at Pier 62 up to Broad Street that makes that connection to the sculpture park. That money will also go toward improvements north of the sculpture park in 2 parks. One, Myrtle Edwards, is a city-owned park, and then the Port of Seattle owns a Centennial Park, which both of those are north of the sculpture park. So those improvements will connect all the way up to the new Expedia Park that is owned by the Expedia folks. Is that the question? Okay.
May I ask about art?
You can ask about art, sure.
You had your next, I'm done here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The next to the last slide, I think it was, shows 4 different, so you were talking about the Friends, but in that, there's a large bunch of shapes on the upper right, and I wondered if you could explain about that, but then also say some more about what the other public art things are. I appreciate the
Yes.
welcoming figures that you said, but
Yeah.
more about that.
So that is actually a picture of a break dancer on Pier 58. So that is a programmed event. So it's not a sculpture. It's actually a human being doing some break dancing, which I am not a break dancer, but apparently he's really good at it. As far as the other art projects, as I said, we have 10 different projects. One of them, I kind of skipped right by it. One of them was installed at the Union Street pedestrian bridge, and it was done by Nori Sato. She's an amazing local artist. She doesn't like me talking about what it actually is. So this picture down at the bottom right has this big fern, and she has a beautiful story about how this came about. She visited the site before we had built anything down there, and she was looking around, and she looked at this retaining wall that was located there, and there was this tiny little fern growing right out of the middle of that wall, and a crack in that wall. And anyway, she's amazing. That's one of the art elements that's already been installed. We have one by Buster Simpson at the south end near the beach, and I don't know if I have a picture of that one. It's an anthropomorphic installation. So it's intended these are like these big concrete dolos that you see that, it's like riprap, like man-made riprap that you would use on beaches to manage erosion control for beaches. And he created this image or these ideas about what that might look like as an art installation. So you'll see that adjacent to the beach if you go down there. And then we have a host of lots of other really cool projects. Ann Hamilton is doing a piece at the Overlook Walk, kind of a lit up screen wall piece with some puppeteering behind it, some additional indigenous projects that I talked about earlier. So we have on our website, you can actually click on the art element of the website, and I can send you the link to that. And you can just kind of look through all the different art elements and the artists that we've hired. It's pretty exciting.
Are there going to be any more beaches that are accessible to the public north of the area that you're working on?
Yes, there is one at the Sculpture Park. If you've been to the Sculpture Park, there is an accessible beach in that park. And then further north, there will be some additional beaches added as part of this new philanthropic project that is upcoming. And I know that group of folks is making the rounds and doing some outreach on what people want to see in that next phase, moving to the north. So if you want more beaches, you should speak up.
Thank you for a fine, fine presentation.
Thank you so much.
Tell me, if I understand it correctly, many of the piers are privately owned. To what extent do those piers participate in what is happening now?
Thank you. Yeah. We have a mix of publicly owned and privately owned piers on the waterfront. So, Coleman Dock is obviously publicly owned. The piers south of that are owned by the port. But, Donegan and his folks who own Pier 54, we have Ryan Smith and his company that owns 55. We have Miners Landing, owned by the Griffiths. All of them have been huge participants all along the way in terms of the design elements. Some of the design they love, some of it they don't love so much. I'll just put that out there. They also are huge contributors through the LID in terms of helping pay for the park. And they've actually been an amazing group of people. I don't know what we'd do without them. They're a lot of really wonderful people. Yeah.
I imagine that in the course of time, a lot of new buildings will be constructed along this park. And I'm wondering if you're developing guidelines and principles that you want new people building properties for commercial or residential use to follow, to keep the vitality of the area and its beauty.
Yes, that's a great question. And I just pulled up just a picture of some of the buildings here in the Pioneer Square district, because we've been seeing a lot of reconstruction in the Pioneer Square area, lots of new buildings happening, but also a lot of rehabilitation of the old buildings that were there. The zoning didn't change too much. I mean, one of the big focuses of the city is as you go down to the waterfront, the top of the buildings have to be lowering as you go down so that you're preserving those views from downtown Seattle. And so a lot of the buildings that you're seeing here, this is the maximum height that those buildings can be built to. All of them are built right up to the existing city right-of-way, so they can't expand any further toward the waterfront. And so our project builds right up to the line between city right-of-way and private property. I hope that answers.
Here's a question back here.
I have two very different questions.
Yes.
One is, I'm concerned about, I was born here, it was a working waterfront, and I don't see much working waterfront possible left in there. And the other one is, what is happening, all these things, how is that affecting the kelp problem?
Oh, wow, those are two very different questions. I'll try to answer both. First question, in terms of the working waterfront. So the Port of Seattle actually owns all of the piers, not Pier 48, which is just south of, actually, here's a picture of it. So the state of Washington owns this pier, which is Pier 48, and they're looking to utilize that as a place that they can electrify the ferry system. So that's a whole nother hour. And then south of this, all of those piers are owned by the Port of Seattle. So they all support shipping and goods and freight and railroad access. On the north end of the waterfront, which I don't have a picture of here, the port also owns many piers. They own that marina at Harbor, the marina just north of Pier 62, if you remember that image. They have a headquarters up there. They own a cruise ship terminal that operates, very heavily over the summer. So it's still very much a working waterfront. I think we've tried to focus the central waterfront really more on building new parks and public open spaces for people to to enjoy. I don't know if that answers all of your question, but that's my answer. And then the second question, what about the kelp? The kelp is growing back in certain locations, in particular at the beaches that have been built along Elliott Bay. And we're seeing a lot of that. And I talked about the University of Washington earlier. They're really out there every month verifying what's growing, the new growth, how the habitat's doing. And the juvenile salmon populations, they're counting all the juvenile salmon that they see out there. And they've seen those numbers grow in the last 10 years. So hopeful, something to be hopeful about.
Well, it looks like you've answered all of our questions. This was actually a wonderful presentation. We all wonder what is going on, so you really fill this in. Thank you, Angie.
Awesome, thank you. Well, I do want to say, I speak to a lot of groups, and the questions I got here are the most engaging, thoughtful questions I've ever had. I'm like, really, really great. So thank you for being so thoughtful and so kind tonight.
And you were going to send us some sites that we can connect to. So you could just send them to me and I'll get them out to people that want them.
Okay,
So.
yeah, you can have the
Good.
slides, and then if you want a link to the waterfrontseattle.org website, we
Great.
can get you
Good.
that.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you, everybody.